The Sefer HaChinoch, which is one of the books that discuss all 613 mitzvahs, learns from a verse in this week's Parsha, Parsha's Behar, to be the source of the mitzvah of following the Torah's rules of buying and selling. The pasuk says like this: "V'chi simkaru mimkar lamisecha." When you sell something to your friend, "Ay kanai miyad misecha," or you buy something from your friend, "Al tainu ishas achiv." Don't scam your friend. Don't overcharge him. Don't slight him. And the chinuch rules that this is the source of the mitzvah of following the Torah's rules of business, of buying and selling. A interesting specific halacha about the Torah's rules of buying and selling with a profound spiritual lesson in our day-to-day life is as follows. I can only sell something to you that exists. If something does not yet exist, I cannot sell it to you. For example, if I have a tree that produces dates, and I say, if you give me $10,000, I'll sell you all the dates that my tree will produce this upcoming year, it is not a valid transaction, because the dates, I can't give you dates that don't yet exist. When they grow, then I could sell them to you, but right now they don't yet exist, so I can't give them to you, so the sale is void. The buyer gets his $10,000 back. However, when it comes to pledging these dates for a mitzvah, for example, let's say giving them to tzedakah. If I say that all the dates that my tree will produce throughout this year, I will give to tzedakah, that is a binding sale. But why? If I'm pledging it for tzedakah, why is it any different than me selling the dates? If I can't sell the dates because they don't exist, how can I pledge the dates for tzedakah if they don't yet exist? And the explanation is that a sale, I can't sell objects that don't exist. The objects aren't here for me to give to you. However, when it comes to a mitzvah, the object's existence doesn't doesn't lock in the reality of the transaction. Me as a person, the gavra, I have to follow up on my tzedakah pledges. So even though the cheftza, the fruits don't exist yet, but the gavra has to commit to his tzedakah pledge according to Torah. Therefore, even though the fruits don't exist yet, but the person's commitment locks in the transaction, and when it comes to a mitzvah, it is considered a valid transaction and a valid commitment of that. The fruits are now owed to the poor people, even though the fruits don't exist yet. The person's obligation and the person's commitment to tzedakah sets the transaction into reality. And this has a very profound lesson in life. Oftentimes, we commit to Hashem to be a good Jew, or to learn more Torah, or to commit better to doing mitzvahs, or even ben adam lachavere, to be a better spouse, to be a better parent, to be a better friend to people around me. But not always do we execute. We commit, and we mean what we say, but sometimes we fall through and we fail and we get into bad ruts. And then we start questioning ourselves and start feeling like imposters that I thought I made this big commitment. I thought this year I meant it. This year my resolutions on Rosh Hashanah, I thought I would actually keep. But now I see I'm a failure and I was just fooling myself. I'm really the same Russia that I was before. That I decided I'm going to be a good Jew, I was being foolishly naive. But comes Torah over here and says something very interesting. When it comes to mitzvahs, when it comes to goodness, when it comes to godliness, the commitment, the transaction is not set into reality because of the cheftza, only by what's produced. Even if the produce isn't always there, the gavra's commitment, my sincere commitment to Hashem, already sets it into reality, even if the produce doesn't yet execute or doesn't yet exist. If someone commits to Hashem, to be wholeheartedly be a good Jew, we say machshava teva hakadosh baruch hu mitzarfa l'maaseh, a good intent, a good will, where I want to identify. Hashem accepts that as my identity. As long as my intent and my will is really there sincerely, not just I have a fleeting thought about this, but I'm really committing, like this pledge for tzedakah. That when someone pledges for tzedakah and the fruits aren't there, that is binding. The gavra's commitment is binding. So too, that's the way Hashem views us. And even if we pledge to improve, if we pledge to be a wholehearted Jew devoted to Hashem and Torah mitzvahs, then even if we slip up, so the peiros aren't there, the cheftza is not there, maybe our produce, our thought, speech, and action haven't come into existence fully yet, but the gavra's commitment sets a reality. You identify as a committed Jew, you are a committed Jew. So sometimes it doesn't execute, okay. But the produce isn't what binds the commitment. The person's ambition and where he puts his heart already is enough to set this into reality. And this is a very, very profound lesson and very empowering lesson that We can't think that our pledges are null and void because it doesn't always execute. We could say our pledges are our reality, and therefore start questioning our actions. And if this is really me, because this is what I committed to, then maybe I should slip up much less, because I'm committed. And therefore the actions will start following the way you want to identify, not the way you want to identify will start getting shaky because you sometimes slip up in action. And this is the way Torah views who we are. We are not always a byproduct of our actions. If we really commit to a way of living that is right, then our actions eventually will follow that commitment and that way of living. This reminds me of a story of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, who one time had a chassid who would come to him dressed in the customary chassidic garb, the hat, the kapata, and then on business he dressed a bit more balabatish with a nice suit, or whatever was considered less chassidic and more polished. And one day he decided, you know what, I'm going to stop fooling myself. Why am I going to the Rebbe? Every time I'm by the Rebbe, I'm dressed like a chassid, and then in business I dress polished. If that's really who I am, let me go to the Tzemach Tzedek like that. So the next time he went to the Tzemach Tzedek, he went in his jeans and his blazer, whatever it was in Russia back in the day. I don't know the style. And when the Tzemach Tzedek saw him, the chassid said, Rebbe, I'm sorry if you don't like this, but I decided I'm going to be authentic. And in the name of authenticity, I decided the way I dress in business, I'm going to come to you the way I really am. To which the Tzemach Tzedek responded, until now, I thought that the real you was the chassid that comes in front of me. And when you go to business, you dress that way. Now you're showing me the other way around. We all have two sides to us. We all have the chassid side to us, the committed Jew, the wholehearted Jew, the one that cares about the right thing and genuinely tries to commit to it. But sometimes we slip up. And then the problem isn't that we slip up. The problem is when we slip up and we don't produce, we start thinking that that's who we really are. And that's the mistake. The real us is the chassid. The real us, or as long as I tell myself that the real me is that chassid, as long as I tell myself the real me is my better self, the committed Jew, the committed parent, the Jew that's full of love and Avas Yisrael, then even if that doesn't always execute, then that's not the real me. The real me is where I identify. And if the gavra, if the person commits wholeheartedly towards something godly, then eventually the produce follows suit as well. Have a great Shabbos.